welcome to Billy's Books. Today I'm going to review another Star Wars novel, Shadowfall. This is an Alphabet Squadron novel. A while back I reviewed the first Alphabet Squadron novel. This is the second. It's a follow-up, in fact. Alphabet Squadron is led by a woman named Quell. She was once an Imperial fighter. Now she's a New Republic fighter. This book comes between episodes 6 and 7, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. More towards Return of the Jedi. The Empire is still crumbling, but not lost yet. It still exists, and the New Republic is working on establishing itself, but still got a long way to go. So Quell had left after, I think, the Battle of Endor, and she has to question her own motives as to why she actually left the Empire. Did she leave the Empire because they were losing, or because she saw that they were doing bad things? Because she herself participated in a number of questionable battles, and she participated in actions during the war with the Empire that may be considered by New Republic people war crimes. So she is hiding a lot of her history whilst in the midst of fighting her former employer, or whatever, her former side. And she's pretty tense about it because she feels guilt. She feels guilt that maybe she did do war crimes, maybe she didn't. She felt justified at the time. Now she questions her justifications, and she's hiding it from most. There's like one guy, one of her superiors in the New Republic knows, but mostly they don't know. But she's worried about how long it's going to last, and it really freezes her up and makes her hard to communicate with people. Not that she was very good anyway, because she was always rather stoic. But now she's even more stoic. And so that really freaks her out. So, anyway, being the leader of the Alphabet Squadron, her goal is to, their goal, the Alphabet Squadron goal, the New Republic goal is to take down the Shadow Wing, which is the hotshot fighter squadron from the Empire that Quell was once a part of. But they've kind of fallen apart, and there's a guy who's trying to put them back together on the Imperial side. We get to see his perspective, and of course he is Imperial, so he sees the New Republic as, terrorists and traitors and all that good stuff, and causes of chaos, whereas the Empire is stability and law and order and all the things that, good, solid, respectable people do. So we see it from both perspectives. It's not one of those stories where, one side is good and one side is bad. They both, the people on the ground or the little people in their fighters, both see their side as the good side, which is just like human nature, or whatever you call it, nature in Star Wars, being nature. Also, one of the people in her squadron, Alphabet Squadron, who is a really weird lady, she's called Kairos, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and she's always got this helmet, this shiny reflective helmet, so when you look at her, all you do is see yourself back, and it's all very existentially haunting and all that, and she's almost never speaks and everything like that, and no one really understands where she's coming from, and they're a little bit scared of her, but also she's badass. She's a really cool pilot, and she takes bigger risks and saves more people as a result of those risks than most people do. So she'll when there's something going down, she'll go off with her one of her larger ships, fighter ships, and go rescue like a whole bunch of infantry. And at one point during one battle, towards the beginning, she rescues a bunch of people from the infantry, and in the process, she really gets taken down, and she almost dies, and she's in the hospital for most of the rest of the novel, and all her wingmates in the Alphabet Squadron think about her all the time. And there's just this one quote here. It was far too easy to forget what had happened to her. The silence of her absence was little different from the silence of her presence. When Quell comes back from that same battle that Kairos was really injured, she does some really heroic saving of people herself, and when she gets back to the New Republic base, she is outed. That they find out that she had participated in some of those battles that were considered war crimes, so they're all really cold to her when she comes back. And the way they deal with her initially, and then where they would deal with her internally over the long term, is an interesting study in human nature. or being nature, as the case may be, since they're not all human. Few of them are, in fact. Most of this book is an attempt, or at least the first half of the book is an attempt to trap the Shadow Wing, which is that Imperial Squadron. And they do that. Their plan is to capture this base on Troith, that's how I'm pronouncing it, in this system that is really weird. It's not a star system. It's in fact a system, a complex system based around a black hole and some mini stars and other gas planets and other things orbiting in this weird way. So they have, on all the planets, it's sort of always nighttime but not proper night. So basically at nighttime it's still brighter than normal nighttime, but the day, it's never really daylight either. So they have these big bright lights in the cities to make it seem like daytime, because that's what humans need. And so that's just a weird system. The lighting is always very strange because you look up in the sky and there's a black hole and other stuff in the sky illuminating the planet. It's a strange ecosystem. It's kind of fun to explore in that way, and I would recommend the book just for thinking about that system as an interesting thing. So they take back the base with the intent of getting the Shadow Wing to come and rescue it, either out of pride or strategic value, though the strategic value of Troith is questionable because the whole black hole system is slowly collapsing, and so the retail or real estate value of all of those planets is slowly over time becoming less, because it's over the millennia it's going to collapse into a big mess. So all that stuff is questionable. But in the short term, the Empire tries to take it back. And so what the New Republic is counting on, they're hoping that the Empire will notice there's an asteroid coming from out of the solar system towards this planet, and they're hoping that the Empire will see it and think that they don't notice it, and they're hoping that the Empire will then take Shadow Wing and hide themselves on the far side of that asteroid and pull as it gets closer, and then when they get right to the planet, hop out and attack. And they're kind of counting on them to use that technique. And so what they've done is they've hidden some infantry on the asteroid, waiting for those people, waiting for the Shadow Wing to get out and stretch their legs, and then they zap them. That's the plan. Does it work out that way? You'll have to read the book. So this book is a mixture of interesting and not interesting. I gotta say, I was talking a little bit about how this book, I don't know if it's the writer or the characters, because I'm not familiar with any of these characters before the Alphabet Squadron book, or whether it's the writing or the actual characters that we're not familiar with that make this book, say, less compelling than a book about Thrawn or about, Han Solo or something like that. So this is as far as Star Wars books, it's pretty good, but it's not the most compelling. I would recommend reading the Thrawn series before this. Just my personal opinion. There's nothing wrong with this book. It's cool, but it's just, I'd go for Thrawn series first. That is my personal opinion. It's still interesting for other reasons, like if you like, reading about spaceships and the various starfighters and how fighters interact and deal with, how they see things on the ground from up in the orbit and things like that, because this person's very good at that sort of thing. And what happens when, battleships come crumbling down, because battleships do come crumbling down from orbit, and what happens when they come down and hit planetary force fields? What happens then? Because that's a lot of metal, and a lot of flesh too, unfortunately. So these are things to think about. It's still worth reading. If you can't do, review.